ये रेडियो पाकिस्तान पॉडकास्ट है।
Assalamu alaikum. This is News and Current Affairs channel of Radio Pakistan. I am your host Javed Siddiq with weekly program Diplomatic Session. Listeners and viewers, in this program we discuss bilateral relations, cooperation and other important developments of mutual interest with the diplomats of Pakistan's friendly countries and regional and international blocs. Today in our show we have with us United Nations Development Program's resident representative to Pakistan, His Excellency Knut Ostby. This show is being broadcast simultaneously from News and Current Affairs channel and FM 101 network of Radio Pakistan every Saturday at 6:15 p.m. Ambassador, welcome to this show. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me.
United Nations Development Program is a development partner of Pakistan. And you know, Pakistan is trying to accelerate its development growth. And UNDP is keenly watching all this. So what is your take on this?
Thank you very much. UNDP has worked in Pakistan for many years, many decades actually. And we work with partner countries across the world for human development. And since 2015, we have had at the focus of our work, we have had the Sustainable Development Goals that all countries have agreed. Pakistan was one of the pioneers that brought these global goals, 17 global goals, into becoming national goals in a parliament decision in 2016. We have the principle that we work with the country to support national goals. We support national development, and we do not have an outside agenda. We work with the national agenda for development. And here in Pakistan, the Sustainable Development Goals is an important national agenda for development.
What is your view or what is your experience of Pakistan's national development agenda? Is it in conformity with the UN Universal Development Goals?
Yes, Pakistan has made these Universal Development Goals among its national development goals. In addition to that, Pakistan has also the later years picked up the global climate change agenda. And the Prime Minister has made several initiatives, for example, this 10 billion tree tsunami towards addressing the climate change issues. So Pakistan is following up on these goals. But of course, we believe there's always more that can be done. We have a continuous dialogue with government about trying to bring ideas, trying to bring new programs and strengthen old programs for how to improve development.
And viewing Pakistan's efforts to accelerate its growth, both social and economic, what is your view? Is Pakistan on the right track?
I think Pakistan is doing many good things for growth and for development. I think while doing so, I think it's very important to have a focus on inclusive growth. Growth is important, but it will only have impact for sustainable development, and it will only have impact on people if it brings jobs, if it is inclusive, if it helps bring social services, social protection, and also if it takes into account environmental and climate change considerations.
Yeah, the current government is also focusing on these issues, on these important goals of inclusive development, taking a keen interest in the development of women and empowering them. Youth is a great asset for Pakistan. Do you think that the government is doing well on this front?
There is one very important program called Kamyab Jawan that I think UNDP has been some part of developing, and we are very supportive of this Kamyab Jawan program. we believe that to bring youth forward, to have them become a part of the solution for the future, three things are needed. It is good education, employment, and also empowerment of youth. Youth needs to be included, they need to have space, their voice needs to be heard, they need to have quality education, and they need to have opportunities for development. And this way, the youth will become a driver for development. They will help bring the country forward.
Yeah, the youth in every society is considered to be an engine of growth. So in Pakistan's context, do you think that it can really become an engine of growth for our economic and social development?
Absolutely, I believe so. But to do so, there needs to be policies that give youth the opportunity to do so, policies that gives youth the space to offer their contribution. There needs to be opportunities for employment so that youth can contribute to the development. We have had, for example, some programs in UNDP where we try to support entrepreneurship initiatives that bring youth into the job market by helping them establish their own businesses, and also skills training for youth.
Yeah, on skills training, are you doing it on your own, or you are collaborating with some Pakistani institutions to impart skill training to the young people, men and women?
We always collaborate with national institutions when we do our programs. In one of these programs, we are collaborating with JAS and doing boot camps to give technical training and skills to youth. We are collaborating also with government counterparts and also with NGOs and private sector when that is relevant for that particular program. So in all our programs, we always work with national counterparts.
Yeah, but on your own, independently, the UNDP is running any program in Pakistan to enhance the skills of the young people so that they can stand on their own feet.
Yes, we have a youth empowerment program. Actually, we have more than one, but we have one larger one with funding from external donors, some funding from our own side, where we do offer support for entrepreneurship training, for skills training for youth. But as I said, we will never do a program entirely on our own. Our principle of development is that we need to support national development. We need to support national initiatives, national individual groups or national institutions who work for development in the country, whether it's for youth or for other things. And then we support these.
Yes. Some of the UNDP report on Pakistan, the previous one that you issued, they also point out the fault lines in the National Development Program, and they want Pakistan to improve for an inclusive development, particularly focusing on men, women and youth and children.
Yes, there is a risk if we do not address the needs to include youth, the need to empower youth. If youth become in large numbers unemployed or disenfranchised, that creates a big risk for any country. Yes. And that risk definitely exists for Pakistan too. It's a race. It is a really an important development imperative to include the youth in that development. So, and you mentioned also for women. Women is half the country. I think in Pakistan there is a great potential to add to the country development by a stronger inclusion of women in development processes, a more space for women to take part in both economic and political processes.
So you have acknowledged the Kamyab Jawan program of Pakistan government. Would you like to think about or suggest any program of this type for the women of Pakistan as well?
With women, I think it's important to invest in two different ways. One is women is half the country.
Yes.
Women are, it's not like youth who are a certain age. Women are of all ages, of all levels of education. I think the first step is that women needs to be included and integrated in processes, in development, in political decisions. And they need, for people like us, for organizations like us, we try to include women in an equal sense with men in all our programs.
Yes.
If we have trainings, creating opportunities through entrepreneurship, etc., that we try to include women in an equal sense in these. But then, in addition to that, I believe there is a need for specific programs that address already existing inequalities, that women have perhaps fallen behind in a number of ways, and to have specific programs addressing that, I think is necessary. But one of those two is not enough alone. You cannot just work for mainstreaming, or you cannot just work on specific women's programs. I think you need both, and you need a strategy which is aimed at gender equality, and with a view to have both women and men contribute equally to the development and governance of society.
Pakistan has empowered or tried to empower women by increasing their representation in the parliament, in the National Assembly and the provincial assemblies. How do you look at this step?
They are important steps. I think if you look at the numbers, I think there are more to be done. We are trying to contribute to this. For example, in our election program, election support program, we have had special training programs or mobilization programs that try to increase the number of women who actually go to vote, or try to increase the number of women candidates. But of course, we are not part of the actual elections. The elections are for Pakistani voters, but we think that a lot can be done to increase this kind of representation, both in politics and business.
For instance, the enrollment of women as voters, on the voters list, this has been a concern shown by UNDP and other institutions as well. So, are you happy with what Pakistan is doing, or the Election Commission of Pakistan is doing, to enlist more and more women, particularly belonging to underdeveloped areas?
No, of course, I'm happy that these actions are being taken. I think I and probably most people in Pakistan think that an increased participation of women is good. But I think you can always do more. I think there's always new ideas, other ways of doing it. Countries, I've worked in many countries, they have many different ways of trying to ensure women's participation. It can be through information, it can be through education, it can be through policies, it can be in some cases through direct quotas. So there's so many ways that can be done. And I think Pakistan is doing a number of things, and I also believe a number of more additional things can be done.
Yes. Would you suggest some additional things, from your experience, that Pakistan could do for the empowerment of women?
I think one of the most valuable assets Pakistan has to bring people on board in its development is that it has evolved very strongly on citizens registration through NADRA to the citizens registration card. This is an advantage that Pakistan has over a number of other developing countries who do not have a system which is as strong as this. I think Pakistan has used this system several times to take special initiatives, for example, with special support to 15 million families after the COVID
COVID
disaster.
hit people.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it can also be used for this. I think that it is already being used, but I think having women registered, having birth registration equally between girls and boys, bringing women on board into the official register system, into the official spheres, official participation in the official space in that way is one of the most important tools. It's indirect. This is not about voting directly, but it is, I think, an important step, and it builds on one of the important strengths that Pakistan has.
Education is also very important and key factor for women to become a part of the developmental agenda of any nation. So you think that Pakistan is spending enough money on women education or focusing its attention on educating them?
I very much agree with you and with many others that education is one of the really key tools of bringing women on board and for many other aspects of development. But as I'm not an education expert, I cannot judge if Pakistan is doing enough or not. But I very much agree it's a very important area to invest in.
But can UN be helpful to the government of Pakistan to give more education or enhance the educational opportunities for women, opening up schools and other institutions?
This is not one of the areas where UNDP is strongly involved. So there are other UN agencies who are engaged in the education sector. Right. And I don't know their programs in detail, but I'm sure that they are investing in this, and I'm sure they're willing to invest more if they are asked to.
So your connection with NGOs, non-governmental organizations, with regard to the development agenda of UNDP and Pakistan, what kind of role they are playing? Are you satisfied with their role?
I think Pakistan has a quite strong NGO community. I have, as I said, worked in many countries. There are very different situations for NGOs in many countries. In most countries, NGOs are subject to some restrictions. In some countries, the restrictions are so much that you have a very small NGO community. I think here in Pakistan, you have a quite vigorous NGO community. I think much can be done to make life easier for them to conduct their work, easier registration, etc. But I think there is a very vibrant NGO community. We see NGOs working on practical social issues in the environment sector, also in the human rights sector, and in the health sector. And we work with NGOs of very different kinds, very different sizes. And we think they are really instrumental for us to be able to reach people at the grassroots level, at the community level.
So are you keeping an eye on their performance, on the NGO's performance? Are they helping you implement the agenda, UNDP agenda in Pakistan?
Yes, our work is organized very often in concrete projects, which goes for a few years. It has some activities, it has some budget, and many of them work with NGOs. So those NGOs that work with us in these projects, of course, then we agree with them on a certain task, on a certain budget, and then we follow up on their performance on that budget when they are part of a project that we implement.
Health is another sector, and you know, a healthy society, healthy people, healthy youth can play a very, very important role in overall development. So are you keeping an eye on the health sector in Pakistan?
The main work of UNDP in health goes in two areas. One is that we have supported the COVID response, particularly when it goes to the socio-economic effects of that COVID pandemic, but also to help with some immediate things, health equipment and supplies, and bring that in. We also work in the HIV and AIDS sector, which is something we have started quite recently. That's also an important area of work. But in the broader health sector, we have agencies like WHO, World Health
Yes.
Organizations, etc., who are doing much broader work than we do.
But in this COVID thing, or COVID areas that people were affected, hit by COVID, did you help these affected people financially or provided them medicines, equipment, or what?
The most concrete work is something we've been doing recently, which is to help get in supply equipment for oxygen type of equipment
To the hospitals.
to hospitals, etc. Then we have done some work on assessing needs, so projecting what is needed after COVID with the socioeconomic response. Many people have been thrown back into poverty because they have lost jobs because of COVID, etc.
Yes.
And we've been part of preparing for that response after COVID.
Yeah, but the government of Pakistan has also taken very concrete steps to actually minimize the effect, the negative effect of this COVID-19 pandemic. How do you look at these steps?
Yeah, I was very impressed by this ESA's response by an immediate cash support to people, and I know that ESA's is also stepping up in the longer term to strengthen their program in response to these needs. I believe that there will be programs and initiatives needed to have more targeted activity to avoid people staying in poverty, those who had setbacks because of COVID. But I think we are ready to try to help work with government on those as well.
On ASAS as well?
Yes, we are already working with ESAS in some technical assistance in their work. But ESAS's work is very broad.
It's very broad, yes. So UNDP is also cooperating with the provincial governments, federal level, yes, but in the provincial governments, because most of this health sector or health related problems are handled or addressed by the provincial governments.
Yes, exactly. And UNDP works in a number of programs, both on the federal level and with we work in all the provinces. We work also in GB and in Kashmir. And we have a range of our programs in all those areas. This, for example, this HIV/AIDS program I mentioned is in all provinces. We have our environmental climate change programs, disaster reduction programs, also in all provinces.
So your experience in the development sector is very extensive. What advice would you render to our development agencies to do so that an all-inclusive development can be achieved, or the objective of all-inclusive development is attained?
When I'm in doubt on what to do, what we should do, I always try to go back to thinking, what do the people actually need? Well, the people, the poorest of the poor, who needs our assistance most, what do they actually need? It's hard to imagine you're in their shoes, but we need to try to imagine what they need. Go back to what they need and also hear their voice. Find ways to have dialogues with people directly, find out what is needed, what is good for them in the longer term. And you will find, among other things, that, for example, when we try to organize our development work, we often do it in sectors. But a family who is in poverty doesn't have needs in a particular sector. They have needs in all sectors. So to look at it from their perspective and see how the needs can be met in a comprehensive way, and how, so to listen to them is one important thing, and also to think about everybody in the country can contribute to development. We need to think about everybody as potential contributors and find out how we can give them space, how we can give them opportunity, how we can give them agency so that they can contribute to the country development. And I think that is what's going to bring us forward.
Another important sector is water, the provision of clean drinking water to the people. So are you concerned with this issue as well, or ready to impart any assistance to the Pakistani government and the people to have them access to the clean drinking water?
We are very aware that this is a very important need in Pakistan. UNDP so far has only a relatively small program collaborating with Coca-Cola on providing one project for supplying clean drinking water. But of course there are other agencies who do more than us on this, but I very much see this as a need. And without clean drinking water, of course you get health issues. Health issues lead to poverty issues, it leads to education issues. So it's really fundamental.
Sure. Overall, how do you look at Pakistan's development agenda? Will it be able to achieve its own national goals and the goals set by the United Nations?
Pakistan has a great potential. It has people, it has land, it has natural resources, it has infrastructure. It definitely has the opportunity to go very far in development. Still, Pakistan has a number of challenges to address. I think there needs to be a real focused effort based on how to include everybody in the country's development. But overall, I think the potential is great, and Pakistan can really accelerate.
The direction of the development agenda, I mean, how the government is implementing all these things, you think they are on the right path, in the right direction?
In terms of direction, I think that it's important to be inclusive. It's important to have growth with people and make sure we don't focus only on economic growth. And to consult people, to give people opportunities to participate and try to reduce inequalities.
Thank you very much. Listeners and viewers, this is all in today's show in Diplomatic Session. Next week, we will have with us a new personality. The producer of today's program was Saeed Ahmed, video engineer Waqar Javed, and executive producer Abdul Rauf Khan. This show is also available on Radio Pakistan's official website www.radio.gov.pk, social media platforms and Radio Pakistan's podcast and podcast.radio.gov.pk. I'm your host Javed Siddique, signing off from today's Diplomatic Session from News and Current Affairs channel of Radio Pakistan, Islamabad. Thank you so much. Very kind of you that you came and participated in this show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Shukriya.